I don't take myself that seriously. I don't think I'm that impressive. I know that I work hard. I know that I built something cool, but like, I think that most of the people here, if they really wanted it, would be able to do the same thing. It's more about the desire to do it than it is the ability.
Welcome to Built Online. I'm Cody McGuffie, and this podcast is all about one thing: building the business of your dreams. Selling art, teaching classes, starting a blog, launching a brand, whatever your passion is, we show you how to turn it into real income. I created EverBee to help anyone with a dream start and scale a business.
EverBee.
And we now serve over 800,000 creators all across the globe. On this show, we bring on real entrepreneurs who've done it. They share their secrets, they share their failures, the exact steps that you can take to get started. What if you can get one golden nugget out of today's episode, and it's the breakthrough that takes you from just dreaming to actually living a life on your terms? At EverBee, we believe that every human is a creator, and every creator should own a business. Erik, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Happy you're here, man. How are you?
Good to be here.
Happy you're here too. We met before. We talked about a little bit before we hit record about a year ago, and that's when we get to learn a little bit about Hawke Media, and introduced by a mutual friend who was on the podcast actually too.
Nice.
A year and a half ago, Grant came on and talked about his entrepreneurial story, which is cool.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I don't think I really got to dig deep into your story and Hawke Media's story, so I'm excited to do that today.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. Happy to share.
Awesome. Let's do it. So, would you mind starting us off, like a little bit of your background, because people know you as like Erik from Hawke Media at this moment, right? But as we all know, that's not how it started. You started like when you were probably an aspiring entrepreneur and eventually turned into an entrepreneur. Can you walk us through that early stages of Erik in the past?
Yeah, I'd actually say, I guess the entrepreneur term wasn't really a thing until I was already running businesses. Like, I was always looking to build businesses, but I feel like the sex appeal of being a business owner didn't really kick in till like 2011, 2012. Like, I was already on my way. Before that, I just took it for granted, and not in the colloquial use of the term, but the literal, where it's just like, my dad was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. I just thought that like, if I took a job, it was to learn something so that I eventually could go build my own thing. I just thought that's what you did. Like, it wasn't like, there wasn't an option that I was going to go be an executive and build a career. I'm like, why the hell would I do that? I want to go build my thing. And so that I never thought about, like, I kind of like a lot of the cliches about entrepreneurship, I never really accepted. Like, it's risky. I'm like, so is working at a job. Your boss has a bad day or makes a dumb decision and you're fired. So I don't know why that feels stable, like letting someone else control your destiny. I guess taking the responsibility off your shoulders is maybe emotionally stable, but your job is not. And versus running a business where it's like, it's on me. I'm going to grow and shrink this and run it how I run it. And if it fails, it's because I did something wrong or picked the wrong horse to bet on.
What did your family do? Like, so give us a kind of a snapshot.
My grandfather ran a scrap metal yard. He was a Polish immigrant from World War II, and he ran a scrap metal yard in East LA after working a ton of odd jobs, while he was getting set up in the US. And then my dad went to work for him, and then basically had someone buy his dad and brother out, took over that business and turned it into a massive waste business, and then got into the commercial real estate business as well. So started buying real estate around his waste facilities. But we ran the waste management for LA, Oxnard, Sacramento, Fremont, a lot of like coastal California. And so watched that and watched what that took hard work wise and the dedication to that. And just, grew up hearing him on the phone and watching how he worked. Did a couple things for me. One is like, again, I just thought that's what you did. And two, there was never like a business person that like, I don't want to say impressed me. Impressed is not the right word, but like intimidated me. Like, I see a lot of people, like our education system, you call your teachers Mr. and Mrs. and you're raised in a way that you have to like respect people, that are sort of higher than you, so to speak. And I just had grown up where my dad was the CEO. It was my dad. I didn't think he was great. I loved my dad, but it was nothing special. So when I met other people that were running big companies, I kind of looked at them as just people. And so that kind of helped me also see myself in that position, because it was like, it wasn't some unattainable person that's, intimidating me and crazy. It's just like, oh, so you worked hard and had some luck and you got here. Cool. Good for you. I'm going to do that too.
I agree with that, actually. It's an interesting thing too. That's just occurred to me too, that probably I was most intimidated by people that were in the school systems and like my bosses at companies versus when I met multiple CEOs and multiple founders of like massive success when I was a kid and younger. These people were like literally the most human people if I compared them to like my teachers or like, university professors and things like this. Like these people were actually, they were so relationship driven.
You have to be like, that's the thing is like, it's depending on the industry, but most industries, to be a CEO, you have to have people that want to work for you that are super capable. If you want to build a decent company, you have to be doing business with other people. You have to like, people have to like you, meaning you have to be like a bull. So not many people get very successful being pieces of shit, just to be blunt. So they're very approachable. And so, and that's the thing is when you don't have those sort of preconceived notions and inhibitions about talking to them, when you open those doors, it just reinforces it because you realize these are great people that want to help and they're doing cool things. And that, I very early in my career became addicted to the sort of meeting other entrepreneurs and learning what they did and networking, which has definitely benefited my business, but it became a really fun part of why I like my business and why I like running my business, which is my job is to meet great entrepreneurs all day and work with great entrepreneurs and figure out how I can bring our value to them. So a good portion of my time is just spent meeting and talking to people doing really cool things in different fields.
Did you ever get a chance when you were younger, watching your father and your grandfather, did you ever see the downsides of owning a business? Like
No.
to where it almost turned you off, or did they do a really good job of just like only showing you the upside?
I don't think it was like a showing. It was not intentional. So I don't want to get. My dad was, a teacher by watch what I do, not listen to what I do. So he was not like thinking consciously of sheltering me from the downside. That wasn't a thing. He was a pretty stressed out, volatile guy some of the time, but I never associated with that. He said things to me that didn't resonate until much later when I was running a bigger business. Things like, what was a good example? Oh, he got into real estate because he wanted to sleep at night, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then you realize, oh yeah, because real estate's not an operating business. There's still stress in it, but it's not the same. Whereas waste management, similar to like running any business, like if you're running a day-to-day operating business, you don't get to check out at the end of the day. You don't get to just turn it off. Like it's stressful. And so, saw that in different ways. I also like early on when I used to like call him with my business problems, he'd be like, yeah, that's nice. Bye. And just like hang up. Cause he's like, and I was always like, what the fuck? And then I realized like, oh, you're dealing with the same stuff. And I'm just bringing more like PTSD to you. Cause you're like, I have my own problems. Like I do not want to hear this right now. So you start to realize like the anxiety and stress stuff, like different people manage it different ways. But now in hindsight, I go, oh yeah, he was probably really stressed out at that point. He went through this. I mean, we were about to put this out, but it's a story I remember that I had completely forgotten about when I was like a month into business. And looking back, it's like I completely understand his reaction now. But I got a call. No, I got an email at like 3 a.m. on a Monday morning I had a handful of employees, and the guy that was managing half our business basically emails me and goes, "Hey Erik, long story short, I fell in love. Asked this girl where in the world she wanted to go. She said Hawaii. We're here now. I'll be working remote this week." This is pre-COVID. Like this is 2014. There was no working remote. This was super unstable behavior. It was like, what are you talking about? You met a girl over the weekend and fell in love. Like what? And I was relying on this guy to manage half my client base, and was very early. We lose those clients. We're done. And so I tried to call him. And finally I got him on the phone and I was like, hey man, like, I knew if I came at him, he was just going to get defensive and volatile. So I was just like, hey, just make sure you handle your stuff. He's like, of course, I'm on top of everything. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to take this girl to Hawaii. We're good. Don't worry. I'm like, okay, nothing much I can do. It sounds like you're on it. Let's give this a shot. Next day I get we had 8 clients. He had 4 of them. The 4 clients all call me pissed off. Where the fuck is your guy? Why is nothing's been delivered? What's going on? I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I try to call him, can't get a hold of him. It's Hawaii. Finally, he calls me back at like 3 p.m. Pacific, noon Hawaii time. And I'm like, yo, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm going to stop you right there. This is the happiest day in my life. I'm getting married tomorrow. I need you to respect that and back off. Okay. Hang up and look at my business partner, Tony, who's still my business partner. And like, he's like, I guess I'm going to go learn how to do some email marketing, some other things right now and jump right in. He took over. And so I'm like nervous. We're going to lose those 4 clients. I call my dad and I'm like, hey, tell him this, basically a 5-minute version of that, what I just said in a minute. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah, that shit happens all the time. Anyways, I got to run, talk to you later. And he hangs up. And I'm like sitting there, like I was, existential, just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? Are we going to be able to take this? And he's like, yeah, it's welcome to running a business. I got to run.
Part of it. It's part of the deal.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so true, and it's probably so true for even more so for like blue collar type of work, like waste management, like steel. It's like you're dealing with actual humans, not the internet so much, right? People actually have to show up to work every single day, get in that truck, drive the truck. Like it needs to happen. And if someone doesn't show up, like you are literally like you're in tight spot now. And yeah, I agree. My father, my stepfather, my mom, all this stuff, very, very similar too. It's like, that just sounds like a normal thing.
Yeah.
Like
no, and now, and, I've had over 1,000 employees now. It's a very normal thing. People flake, people do that. It's like, and they blame everyone else for where the outcome is, which is a sad truth of it, but it's just people, people are hard to work with sometimes.
so you knew, it sounds like you knew you were going to be an entrepreneur at a pretty early age. And then you moved
6 years old.
6 years old. What, maybe skip past, maybe like, what was your first, I would say what would you consider a real business?
Yeah.
And kind of it led us into Hawke Media.
Yeah. Cause there were all the little like kid stuff of selling flowers and Beanie Babies and that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
Like, yeah. So to skip over that, I did, I was what was that? Sophomore year of college. I wanted to learn sales because I kept hearing that sales is like the most important thing you could learn, whether you're going to be an entrepreneur or just to sell yourself in a job. And so I did Cutco. Coming out of that, I broke a bunch of records.
I did Cutco too.
Yeah, it's great. And so they asked me to open an office for them in my junior year summer. I was about to do that, and I got a call from a friend that had California had passed a law that you had to filter storm drains, and no one knew how to do it. But if you didn't do it and they enforced it, it was like $75,000 per drain for not filtering it. So it was like a real fine. And so my friend had patented and figured out a drain filter for storm drains, but didn't know how to go to market with it, didn't understand sales, and said, "Hey, why don't you just come in and join me and do this?" So that was our first business. We built it for the summer. This was summer of 2007. So it was like the whole like dropping out of college and pursuing a business had become like the sexy thing to do. And so I was entertaining the idea of not going back for my senior year and building this. And I got us our first contract, and I wrote the contract and did everything. I played lawyer for us and did a bunch of stuff. And then I got to the end of summer. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to filter storm drains the rest of my life. So I'm not going to stick around and do this. I'm here to help, but you take it. I had half the company. I just like, don't worry. We didn't.
What age was this approximately? What age were you?
2007.
2007. How old were you? I get at this stage.
20.
20 years old. Cool.
Yeah. So he took it over. He built it to be a multi-million-dollar business. And I went back to school to finish school, and then came out and went into real estate. But that was the first business that real business that we incorporated, started, did got it going.
When I was looking at when we did some research, when you were 21, you got into, like you said, you went into real estate. That must have been 2008. Recession hits. Yeah. 22.
It was a week before Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. It was the week I started.
Wild. And then when you say going into real estate, you like as an agent or?
Yeah, commercial agent.
Commercial agent. Wow, tough year. Tough multiple years.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then essentially you eventually led into Fame Wizard, and then eventually led into Swag of the Month. Which one was like more e-commerce based and then kind of product focused? Was one of those?
Oh, Swag of the Month for sure. Fame Wizard was like business coaching for musicians. So it was online based, and we honestly were just hacking Craigslist to make that business work. We were just posting in the gig section to help people to get gigs, and like found a bunch of ways. It was a real nice, like on the ground, like hand-to-hand combat of how to do marketing and meet people where they are. But we built that to profitability. I knew it was never going to be a big business because, frankly, having independent musicians as your customer, like if you're going to build a business, maybe have a customer that has money. And sadly, like 10% of independent artists are hardworking, great people. 90% are just using it as an excuse not to work. So learn that and like picking your customer in the way. And so hired a CEO to take over, knew it wasn't going to be big, moved on, started Swag of the Month, the t-shirt subscription site.
That's what it was, t-shirt subscription. And this is around 24 years old at this point. Right. Well, I'm saying the recurring theme is like problem solving, like helping others. And then obviously just charging for that service that you're the problem that you're solving. And I want someone to take away from this is like, I mean, at this point, you're 24 years old. How many at-bats have you taken at this point, right? It's multiple. Yeah. We're talking like almost
3. And that's if you don't count like when I tried to start a music website at 12, and then my dad wouldn't co-sign on a seller's permit. So I got the site live and I had all the distribution partnerships with like Fender and Ernie Ball and Gibson and all these things. But then they asked for my seller's permit when I went to do an order. I'm like, what's that? And I'm like, Dad, I need you to take me to the courthouse and get me a seller's permit. He's like, the fuck are you talking about? So didn't end up launching that one. But like I'd built sites to launch. Even when I was working in real estate, the guy that actually still one of my best friends, but at the time, like the colleague I got along with the most, my first job out of college, we bought the letter R talk.com, and we're going to build a real estate like community website, like social media website when everyone was building social media for this and that. We never launched it, but there were a lot of like the at-bats that actually went and made money and turned into businesses were those three. But there was a lot. I was always tinkering.
Same. Same with me. I was selling stickers on the side of the road when I was, whatever years old. Put my Pokemon cards, I was selling them, right? Didn't even know how to do change yet. Same thing. And I do remember specifically with Cutco, there was a point with Cutco when I was like 20, whatever, I was in college. 22? Is that the right age? There was a point where I was trying to sell Cutco online. I'm just like, there has to be a better way to do this and going door to door. Like there has to be an online way to do this. And I was like posting them on Craigslist and stuff. Just like obviously no results there, or not much at least. But the ideas were coming, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it's to get into that.
Let's jump into Hawke Media a little bit too, because we're about halfway through, and I want to make sure that we cover one of the biggest things that you've been building for the past, I would say, 10 years now that you've been building Hawke?
Almost 12, 11 and a half.
Wow. Maybe can we jump to where it is today, and then we can kind of reverse engineer of how we got there. So like, where would you say, if someone were to ask you like, hey, how successful is Hawke Media? Can you give us a snapshot of like some bragging numbers that you typically wouldn't say unless someone asked you specifically, like, hey, brag to me about Hawke Media?
I mean, over 3 billion in net or gross revenue, not net revenue. And then we've worked with almost 6,000 brands. We've successfully grown. We've got about 250 full-time people, 23 acquisitions of other agencies. We've got we're mostly through our second venture fund, a $20 million fund. Our first was 5.5. So, managing with SPPs about 30 million on the investment side.
Okay, so you're investing in you're saying that's what you're using to lever you're using to
we're
buy
we're investing in marketing technology, e-commerce technology, like different tech companies. And then I'm trying to think what else. What are other, tons of awards. I actually last night got honored with Executive of the Year by LA Times, which was super fun. Did not expect that. I thought I was going to an event where it was like, there was a giant list. I mean, I think it was a few hundred people like up for the award nominees. And I thought that was the list. Like I was just one of a couple hundred people. And I was like, cool, like I'll go to a dinner with a bunch of people that are being celebrated. And then I got a text, you're going to show up tomorrow, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, cause you're a finalist. I'm like, what's a finalist? What do you mean? This is a competition? Like I had no idea. And I showed up. The president of LA Times, we're in YPO. We know each other through YPO. And I was definitely the only person in the room in a t-shirt, let alone not a suit, because I had no idea that this was some like real award. I thought it was just like a lot of the publications like put these lists out just because it could get some attention and some engagement. I thought it was one of those. And it was like, no, this has been going on for, years, and this is a real award. And I'm like, oh. So I show up, her on stage, she's like, of course, this is the only guy that can show up in I was literally wearing what I'm wearing right now. So she's like a t-shirt and a baseball hat at this event. I'm like, yeah, my bad. But yeah. That was a fun success. So we've won tons of awards. We've really it's weird because these are all metrics that kind of give you an idea of scale, but the real goal, which I think we're getting closer and closer to solving, is being the go-to marketing partner for any small and medium business. And it's like everybody our size, every agency our size goes up market. They only want to work with the Fortune 2000 because they're bigger budgets, better margins, blah, blah, blah. And I've just not had the same enjoyment from that. I do like working with certain big brands and it's fun, but a business only focused on that. The reason they do it is because a lot of private equity and a lot of bigger businesses measure net revenue retention becomes the driving metric, which is basically how much revenue did you have this year and how much was still here next year, because it gives the appearance of stability.
Sure.
And so I don't, fault that. I get it. And I think that the ability to help people that actually need the help, businesses that really want to grow, get access to the best marketing out there, is a nobler cause in some ways. So it's more fun because of that, but it's also like a massive, massive market where there's 2,000 Fortune 2000s and there's 600,000 businesses starting every month in the United States. So seeing that, it's like, that's what we've tried to create. We want to be the household name. That's like, if you're building a business, you call Hawke Media, and that's been fun. And so those metrics are more of like, how far along are we with that, which is fun because again, we've built a decent sized business here. we've worked total over the past 11 and a half years with almost 6,000 brands, and there's 600,000 starting every month. So it's like, we've got some time and some growth ahead of us.
Yeah, I feel the same. I love going after that market too. EverBee's been, people have like suggested the same thing, like, hey, you need to go up market, which I understand the same things. Of course, like going after enterprise brands, and you could do that. And maybe there will be one day when we do that, right? But it's not going to be the primary core of our business because I just genuinely enjoy helping the small dude, like myself.
The majority of the biggest companies in the world's revenue come from small businesses. Amazon, Google, Meta, TikTok, their ad revenue is driven by small businesses. They have big businesses too, and they help, but the percentages are the other way in a big way. So it's like, well, you're telling me the biggest companies in the world didn't go up market. They have up market, but they didn't focus on it. And the only one that actually hasn't done a great job of that is Snapchat, which is the struggling one. And so I'm like, everything tells me, like, and I've said this bluntly to private equity funds we've had conversations with, where it's like, my metrics are revenue and profit, not net revenue retention. Like, that's a secondary metric. It's important, but like, I want to know, are we growing top line and are we growing bottom line? Like, that's what matters in a business. And so if I can do that, these other metrics are great metrics to work on. And like, but we always talk about our client typology. We're going to have higher churn than a 3-year contract on a bunch of Fortune 500s. That's going to be a factor. So just build a business that adapts to that and can still be great.
Interesting. For Hawke Media, how do you measure, like, what's your long-term game plan for Hawke Media? Is it to eventually, it sounds like you're branching into other things. I'm sure you think about the long-term vision very often.
We've got a long way to go to be, what we want to be. So I'm more focused, like, the best way to put it is I am very focused on building a business I want to run for a long time. So the things I don't like to do, make sure I have people that do them. The stability that I need to make sure that this can last, let's build that. Like, how do I build a company that I could do forever and I can enjoy running? And that, I think, because businesses fail for 2 reasons. Either the leadership burns out or you get underwater financially. So don't take on a bunch of debt or investment you can't pay back, and don't burn out, and your business will last forever. So
very seldom do I meet someone very similar, very aligned with this too. That's the same thing we talk about. And I think that's where you win long term. You win not in 2 ways. You win in business, but then you also win in your personal life. Like, what's the point of even doing this whole deal if you fucking hate it? And I don't want to be forced into a sale.
I would say I've been in those positions where I've woke up with dread in my brain 3 months in a row. It is the worst experience of my life. And you just go like, and you're ready to just irrationally throw it all in. And so like fighting that and being like, nope, you get through the bad times. And then like really focusing on how do I make this so that I enjoy it. Again, that you can contract if you need to. Like, businesses can grow and shrink, and you get your sort of emotion out of it in a way that's just like, let's just have fun with this. You gamify it and see what we can do. And that takes giving yourself, building a business model that works, that you can hire people that can help you, that you can, scale it. And now we've got a great leadership team. We have a couple other executives we need to bring in to get to like real, humming in the sense that I'm trying to do, but I'm doing that right now. And we have, thankfully, an excellent new in-house recruiter that's getting me tons and tons of interviews. And we just hired a new sales director. We're hiring a CFO. And then frankly, at that point, we should have the leadership we need to,
keep going.
The goal for me is be additive. I do not want to manage day to day. It's just not fun for me. There are people that love the TDM and love that. I like running around, shaking hands, kissing babies, waving the flag, beating the drum, all the different metaphors that my business partner has used for me. And so finding a way where I can be in that pocket, but know that everything else is handled, is important.
If you could walk us through like the last 12 years, and I want to kind of cater this towards the agency builders that are listening to this, right? Who have heard and they know that they have a skill that they want to bring, and they have a problem that they can solve clearly being an agency. But they're also hearing this in the back of their head is like, agency is hard to scale. How do I like continue to like get a repeating sales cycle? I've been in business for like 6 months and I like only have 1 client or 2 clients. Like, can you kind of walk us back 12 years and maybe like year 1, I had this much revenue or whatever you can share, and kind of give some inspiration, but also help them.
Yeah. I mean, how do I put it? There's a lot of different ways to answer that. So year 1, we did $1 million in revenue, like 1.01. My goal was $1 million. We beat it by $10,000. It was awesome.
And you charge on average, how many customers is that essentially, or anything?
I don't know what our average was. I mean, I charged $3,000 per service per month, but I would guess we were charging between $6,000 and $8,000 per month per client
at that time.
on average.
Cool.
which is what we're still doing, just to be
Gotcha.
blunt. Like we're still, I think we're just under 8 right now. I think it was 7,900 last time I looked.
Beautiful.
So that hasn't changed much, which is funny because our prices have gone up, but people just hire us for less things at the same share wallet. So, and when I say our price has gone up, I think over the past 11 years, our prices have gone up like 25%. It's not some drastic thing because we've tried to find efficiencies that let us keep serving at the same price with, even though inflation's a thing. And we're constantly trying to, our mission has been be the best at what we do, but easy to work with. So easy to work with becomes a big driver of how we roll these things out. So trying to,
so $1 million a year, $1 million the first year is a big milestone.
2.5, 5, 10 was the first 4 years.
2.5,
In
10.
net
Cool.
revenue, to be clear, our fees. So I got a really good piece of advice that I think really relates to even reflecting on yourself around investing. It was one of the best piece of advice I've had in investing because it's so simple but so important and something I look at in every deal I do. It's invest in the ambition of the founder, because wherever your head's at as a founder is what you're reaching to. If you're like, I'm going to build a $500 million business or $1 billion, and I mean revenue. So I'm going to build a $10 billion value business. You're shooting for that. Your actions, what you do is very different than someone that's like, yeah, it'd be great to make $500,000 a year, which, by the way, not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that's a bad thing as an investor, not as an operator. For yourself, if you're happy making a couple $100,000 a year and you can, you live somewhere where that can afford you a lifestyle that totally works for you, you can probably remove a lot of stress from life and run a decent little business. That is what you have to kind of come to terms with. So like to your point of like, if you've been 6 months in, you got one client, I would ask what the hell you're doing all day. Like because one client shouldn't be taking all your time, and running a business is 24/7. I'm 12 years into this with 250 employees, and I have not taken a day off and usually I do, but in weeks, because I've had, and when I say day off, last week I was at a local conference and a bunch of events around it. I worked from 7 a.m. to 11 or 12 or 11 p.m., 12 a.m. every day for the entire last week and weekend. So it started Saturday, then Sunday, then Monday, then Tuesday, then Wednesday, then got back in the office Thursday, but still had an event Thursday night, then Friday and still had an event Friday night, because I love it. I want to grow this thing and I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. So I'm pushing. And I say that because you get the feedback, you know that it's working, you want to do this stuff and you keep pushing. If you're someone that doesn't want to work like that, you're not going to build as big of a thing. Like it's just hard work and being smart enough and working hard enough are the two big factors of success. How successful, I think, is where luck comes in, but you got to work your absolute ass off and you've got to be smart and work smart too. And, I always joke about like the 4-hour work week. It's like, then why wouldn't you do that 10 times or 12 times? Like I can work 50, 60, 70 hours a week, no problem. So if I can build a business in 4 hours a week, why wouldn't I build 15 of them? So it's that, but that's me. So again, to the advice to someone that's building their agency, it's like, well, how bad do you want it?
I think that probably is a big thing, because a lot of times agencies are first businesses, at least in my group. It's like, this is like their first real business. And so a lot of times they don't understand how much they need to work in order to make something reality. And I think what you started off with before we even hit record was just like, everything's hard. Like running $100,000 a year business is very hard. And running a $1 million business here and $100 million business here, it's all hard. It's just different.
I would say
it's
not. I've had friends that run smaller businesses and me be like, "Well, you're dealing with much bigger stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but I have more resources." So like, it's all relative.
Yep.
It's all hard. The stress that I dealt with when that guy left my company or bailed on me when we were like 7 people is just same as when I get some massive hit in the business now. Like it's just the emotional reaction is the same. It's all hard.
It's all hard.
Yeah,
I completely agree. And yeah, and I would argue that it actually gets easier as you get bigger. I know that not everybody would agree with that, and maybe you wouldn't either. I think that you have more resources.
You have more resources, but the problems get a lot bigger. You become a target. You get frivolous lawsuits. You get all sorts of stuff that happens. That I always like. Thankfully, I came to reality of this a few years into business, where I watched Apple getting hit up by. They were dealing with antitrust law and they're dealing with geopolitical problems, and frankly, some of the stuff we're dealing with again now with like tariffs and China and And it's like biggest company in the world, and that guy doesn't get to sleep on the weekends either. Like Tim Cook at the time, it was Steve Jobs, but like Steve Jobs or Tim Cook or whoever, like there is no finish line when you're running a business. You got to run it. And I had a point 3 years ago, a little more, where I had built my executive team. I thought everything was running smoothly. It turned out, without going into too much detail, I was being lied to by a few executives, and it was not going as smoothly, and I was getting fake, falsified reports. But I went through a period of a few months where I was like snowboarding all the time and having fun and like checking in and like really had this lifestyle. And when I found out everything had gone sideways and I had to fix it all, I have an advisor or an unofficial advisor, but the guy just gives it to me straight, that I call, that's super successful, multi-billionaire, et cetera. And I told him the whole story, and he goes, yeah, it looks like you had a nice vacation. Get the fuck back to work. Like, he's like, you think someone else is going to run your company for you? You're delusional. Like, that doesn't exist. The moment that you're done, when you're out, you either quit or you sell or you hire a CEO and don't care about the outcome of the business anymore. Like, that's when you're done. But you got to really not care for one reason or another, because it's not going to go the way you want it to, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I watch friends try to hire CEOs for their business once they get to a certain scale. Very, very, very rarely does it work out unless that person giving up the reins doesn't care anymore. They've made enough money, they've got a new project, whatever, and they're focused, and they're like, whatever happens to that happens to it.
I see a lot of friends probably going down that path right now, actually, that I have also. And I wonder how it's going to work out for them. I think it's a good time to move into, there's a million things we could talk about, and I wanted to go into more, but rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yep, let's do it.
What's your favorite business book? You can't say your own, by the way. I know you wrote a book.
Appetite for Self-Destruction by Steve Knopper.
Appetite for Self-Destruction. I'm writing this down as we speak.
Rolling Stones author, talking about how the music industry just never adapted to the innovation, so they just constantly destructed themselves because why doesn't Universal Music own iTunes? Because they didn't believe digital was going to be a thing, and it happened over and over again. So it just really highlights the idea of disrupting yourself and having to innovate to stay afloat versus resisting where the world's going.
Love that. What's the one thing that you wish that you knew before starting a business?
That the job's never done. I don't know if I wish I knew that or not, but similar to what we just talked about, it's just, there's no finish line. It's about the journey. I worry that if I knew that, I might have not done it. But I also, thankfully, in a lot of ways, was always adamant about enjoying it along the way. So I've had a great lifestyle the entire time I built Hawke. I worked my ass off, but I also did a lot of fun things and continued to. Traveled all over the world, kind of check things off the bucket list to a point now where I'm like, what is the next thing we should do? So that's been, so I kind of live that, but I definitely think in the beginning, I thought there was going to be a point where it's like, well, if we get to that point, then it's going to be a lot easier. And that doesn't happen.
I agree with you. It's interesting. My wife and I, we have 3 kids, and we started our businesses together when we were right out of college. And we have this interesting thing I think about, where when we were first starting our businesses, we were the goal was total financial freedom. And we literally said, as soon as we get to this point, I think it was $10,000 a month, we're chilling. And we're going to go and go and travel and not really build anything past that. I remember this. We were ambitious, but I didn't really know what ambitious meant at the time.
Totally. Yep.
And now when sometimes she throws it in my face jokingly, but also we're not nearly slowing down. If anything, the goals have just 1000x, and we've surpassed that by whatever. And to the point now where I'm we're never going to retire. I'm never going to retire. This is the game that we play. This is I'm built for this. This is in our DNA.
Well, and you got to be careful if that's driven by just the fun of it or the sort of FOMO of it, where it's I've got friends that are worth billions of dollars, and the good news is when you start you get to a certain level where you make enough to cover the bills and to go on cool trips and eat out whenever you want, those kind of things, you start to realize that the difference between someone that makes a couple $1 million a year and someone that's worth billions is minuscule in terms of lifestyle. Private jet, you get a jet, a bigger boat, a bigger house, few material things, but they go on the same trips, eat at the same restaurants, hang out with the same people. You start to realize, go to the same locations, that kind of thing, where it's how much does that really matter? And so if that doesn't, which for me personally, it doesn't, then it's just a function of playing the game. I just do it because it's a scoreboard and it's fun.
Yeah, it's very easy to measure
Yeah.
yourself on it, right? It's very objective. I feel the same. At first, it wasn't like that, I would say, if I'm being honest. But then eventually, like, you get to the point where you kind of have the ability and access to a lot of these things, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, this can't be the end goal. Like, this is pretty
Yeah,
empty
exactly.
too.
Right.
Very
Yeah.
cool, but like, it's
Yeah.
like, it's done, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
then it has to be the journey, not the destination. You're not doing this so you can afford another supercar. You can do like you're doing it because you enjoy the process of running a business and you enjoy building and growing things, which is the intrinsic value.
It also, actually, it's interesting because freedom was the goal too. But as soon as you achieve
Yeah,
quote unquote financial freedom, like, it's not the goal anymore because you've already been
correct.
financially free for a while. And that was an
Yep.
interesting thing for me. It was an interesting
Yep.
observation of like, okay, money's not a concern anymore, actually.
Right.
Like, yes, I
Yeah.
want to do bigger things and donate more and like help young people
Yeah.
and all this stuff. But like,
Exactly. But yeah,
can't be more free.
your kids are going to be fine. You're putting food on the table. Your Maslow's hierarchy is covered, so to speak.
That's interesting because then you have to, like, now that was the goal for so long. You have to like reattach yourself to another thing, and that's an interesting. I'm kind of probably in that phase a little bit, if I'm honest, where
Yeah.
I'm
No,
trying to like
I
fall in
went
love with
through
the
it. I did it.
journey.
I went through similar period. So that period when I got like blindsided by my executives, it was definitely the most stressful, worst part of probably my life. Like I was in a deep like anxiety, just bad because I just got like I thought I could trust these people. It was bad, and I also had a lot of conversation. Like I've made enough money. Like I'm like, why do I do this? Like I'm not worried about our bills. So like, why do I care so much? And it was like this weird kind of like, it was a shift in that because again, for up to that point, so that was 3 years. So it was 8 years into business. I was like, I make enough money. Like I'm not worried about buying, like we have a great house. We're, we didn't have, or no, we were just having our first kid. So it was like, our kids will be fine. I'm nothing like, there's nothing we're left wanting here. So like, what is the reason that I'm grinding my ass off and dealing with all this stress and doing it? And then really found a new like life in that, but it took some time. It's definitely a weird transition emotionally, mentally.
Yeah, I could totally. It's hard to put it in words too, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the worst advice about business that you've ever received?
God, I had one for this. I'm trying to remember what it was. I mean, probably the biggest one was in the beginning when I was building the business I built. It was that's never going to work. You can't. We were month to month. Everything's a la carte, super flexible, and they're like, you can't build an agency that way. And I'm like, I built, again, I built the t-shirt company. Then I built a women's activewear brand. I was like, I didn't have long contracts for people to buy pants. I just had to fucking market to them and have a product that people want to come back and buy. So I don't know why, like I never understood why all these agency founders were telling me that it would never work. And thank God, because yes, it created a different type of agency where we had to find ways to really, retain our clients. But I was like, I think I just disagreed. And I was talking to people that had sold agencies for $100, $200 million that had, multiple successes, C-suites at the biggest agencies in the world. And I knew why they looked at their business that way. But thankfully I was young and cocky enough to be like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, and went with my way. So, and like people that I really respect, close friends, my dad even was like, that's going to be a really hard business to build, not having contracts, the lack of predictability. Like, he was a smart businessman. He's like, I don't think he's like, you can start that way, but like, you're gonna have to pivot. 12 years later, I mean, we discount for longer term agreements because we want them, but like, we don't force it. And it's worked because it turns out the numbers play out, the averages play out. And if you do good work, people generally stick with you.
So what do you think Hawke Media is worth today if you had to value it?
That's hard to answer. I mean, the market's so different that
But you have a conservative number. You have a conservative number and you're like, maybe on the aggressive number.
Yeah, I'd say between this year, we're probably worth between 100 and 150 million.
And what do they trade at typically?
What's funny is I would say, so we were valued at 150 million at the end of 2021, like October 21. And I'd say, yeah, we've worked now another 4 years or 3.5 years to maintain that valuation because of how the market shifted. But yeah, if I'm being honest, we're that.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that too. It's super inspiring for probably somebody listening to this. Like, oh wow, you can't.
Yeah, I mean that's why there was a time where I cared, where I was like, what are we worth? What's our value? And that was like the scoreboard, part of the scoreboard. And then you just, again, my scoreboard now is bills are paid, I'm enjoying it, and it's growing. Like, I'm not selling it, so who gives a fuck what it's worth? And it's worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it. Like, a private equity fund, it's probably even maybe it's 80, to be honest, knowing the multiples right now. It's somewhere between 80 and 100. But a big strategic, it could be 300 if they like just need what we have. So you just never know. And so it's more like, am I building a business that I can run forever? Because then I can take whatever number I want if I want to.
Totally agree with this. If your family and your friends and your customers had to get together without Erik being in the room, and they had to write an article or a book about you, characterizing your traits, like the good stuff and also the bad stuff, what do you think they would say?
I did this exercise. I went through a program called Birthing of Giants at University of Austin, University of Texas Austin, and they made me. I think they anonymously reached. I just remember it being a really good strategy. This is years ago, or a few years ago, and it was actually really awesome what I got back, because it was the two things that came back constantly, which was I like I'm a hustler, but not a hustler like I'm hustling people, but like I working my butt off and I'm always on and I'm like really moving. Like I'm a driver, I'm a grinder. I like to work, and I it was a bunch of different versions of high integrity. I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm super trustworthy. I do the right thing. Like I take care of people. I'm always fair. Like all those things were said over and over and over and over again, which it's nice to know. Like I actually really like pride myself on that. I try to be fair. Like I always use the metaphor of like, if a judge was sitting here listening to this debate or argument, what would they say? Like I try to think that way. What is the fair and objective thing we should do here? Whether it's how I've taken care of our employees or when we have a dispute with a client, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what I think it's going to be or what I want it to be. I'm not going to fight for my outcome. I'm just going to give you what I think is the right thing. And so I've been able to, so knowing that that is my reputation across all our partners and clients and employees and friends and family, like that's cool. I'm not sure. I probably should. I got this the other day. I have a way about me from a guy that was a new consultant we hired that it seems very comfortable with giving me shit, which I like. I think I'm intense, which I don't I'm not as self-aware of as I want to be. I understand when people say it, I'm like, okay, but like, I don't actually know why they feel that way. And it honestly, I do scapegoat a little bit the idea of like positional power, where people in general are just, my title's CEO. So there's just most people are raised to be like, well, he's the CEO. So like everything he said is gospel. So I'll like say something in passing, just like a side comment to me, but it'll change someone's entire week, good or bad. And so being self-aware, that's probably a blind spot that I continue to try, because I don't take myself that seriously. I don't think I'm that impressive. I know that I work hard. I know that I built something cool, but like, I think that most of the people here, if they really wanted it, would be able to do the same thing. It's more about the desire to do it than it is the ability. So I'm not that cocky. And so I forget that people look at me differently, where it's just like, oh yeah, you're the CEO. I'm like, I'm doing my job here just like you are. Like you do your job, I do my job. That's how this works. Like, it's that. So it's that. I think that's where I miss.
It's an interesting thing. Yeah. Same for me too. Cause we're 45 employees right now and, full-time plus, of course, contractors and stuff. But, it's an interesting thing to think about too for us, because sometimes I'll hear even my family members or maybe friends or just people around, and they're just like, "Oh, Cody, you're just like really really busy," and like, "Oh yeah," like, I'm just like, "I haven't heard from you. Like, you didn't call me back, or I'm sorry, like, you didn't call me when you told to tell me that thing," and they're just like, "Yeah, but you're just probably just so busy." And I'm just like,
"Yeah,
I'm not like." I'm just still me, right? But I think the positional, they see us doing these things, so all of a sudden, like they put us in this weird spots,
exactly,
of too busy to call, too busy to disturb. They don't want to be a burden, and I'm just like, I'm still your brother, though. I'm still your like family member.
Thankfully, my family takes me less seriously than I take myself, so I've never had an issue there. Because my siblings grew up like I did, like they're and both my siblings work at my dad's company now, so it's like they're like, yeah, good. Like it's more again like a good for you, like you're doing great, you're working hard, but it's never been like, oh, we know you're busy, Erik, so like we're gonna leave you on. It's like, fuck off, you're coming to dinner. Like what are you talking about? So
Totally.
which is great. I honestly, my leadership team here at Hawke is pretty close to that. I try to coach them. Like, I'm like, your job's not at risk by pissing me off. Like that actually, you don't do your job, you don't hit your numbers. That's a problem. Like I'm objective though. Like you say something to me like, Erik, fuck off. You're not helping right now. I'm going to be like, oh, maybe I'm not helping. And I'm going to reflect on what you said and why I pissed you off. Like, I don't like that. There's two different types of respect in that way, but the sort of like formality side, not me. I actually would much rather have people that give it to me straight, do not mince words. Like, I want to know if I'm doing something wrong. I want that reflection. I want that mirror. And I've had that. That's been the thing. Like my best friends in high school put me in my place all the time and still are two of my best friends. And like, I always crave that of like, I want to be reflected back. Like we're all going to have blind spots. And it's the Marcus Aurelius thing of the guy that fought, was it him or Julius Caesar, that a guy followed him around and said, you're only immortal, or you're a mere mortal, or something like that. It's like, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing myself to fucking Julius Caesar, but like, I think everybody can use that mirror of like, don't get big for your britches. Don't let your ego. My wife's good about it. My wife works in private equity and invests in companies way bigger than mine. I remember when I think we hit like 2 million in EBITDA. I was like, that's kind of like used to be the kind of the line for like private equity gets interested. And I was like, she's like, do you know how many companies in the fucking country are doing 2 million in EBITDA? Like, come on, Eric. It's like, good job. But I was bragging about it. And she's like, it's not good job, but like relax. And I'm like, cause she runs deal flow for a now $4 billion fund. And she's like, you know how many companies I see like this every day? Like, take a chill pill, which is good. Like, to be clear, it's not like deflating and, oh, I suck.
That's a reality check.
Like, it's a reality
ego
check. Yeah, exactly. It's like, great, you built something a lot of people have too. Like, and I think it's a good thing to know that. It's a good thing to be like, no, like, know where you stand, come down to earth. And to be clear, on the other side, I think it's awesome to celebrate milestones, but I've never been driven by competition. I could care less what other people are doing. Other agencies are actually, most of the time when I see other agencies being successful, I'm happy for them. I'm close friends with the guy that built our biggest competitor in LA and sold it and made a ton of money. And we share a night nurse that likes to gossip back and forth between us about each other, because we have two kids that are now very close in age. We talk all the time. And it's like, even when we were running competitors, we were a little careful not to share too much, but we were still going out to dinner. We were friends. And, I've never had that like, oh, I got to beat you. I just want to win whatever. And the only time I get pissed off at other agencies is when they're unethical, when they do shit that's, whether to me or to other people that make the industry look bad.
Yeah, I agree. And when you have like a certain amount of scale too, you have the ability to like almost this responsibility to grow the market rather than like compete of the existing pie, right? How do we grow the pie, essentially? How would you define a creator? Would you consider yourself a business creator, or is it only content that you
I guess products? I would never. I've never thought of myself as a creator, but I create. Like, I guess the same way I've never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. Like, I've used the title, but like, I think of myself as I run a. Like, when people ask, like, I hate that response when you say, "What do you do?" I'm an entrepreneur. What the fuck does that mean? Like, what do you do? I run a marketing agency and a venture fund. Like, unless I want to get deeper, that's what I say to people. And so, we create a lot of content that helps drive that marketing agency. So I definitely am. I have a full-time brand manager that helps me create tons of content for social. I'm spending all day tomorrow filming a bunch of commercials and content. So like, could I fall into that category? Yeah, but I guess I wouldn't define myself as a creator. I'd say like, I do create things.
I would say that the way I see it too is I feel like creator is traditionally mostly used for content creators, but reality is founders are creators, like artists are creators, musicians are creators.
And what I'd say is, there are people that define their career by being a content creator. That's not me. Do I create content because it helps my business? Yeah, but I define my career as running a marketing agency and a venture fund.
Beautiful. Yeah. Who do you think should be a business owner? Last question.
Someone that wants it to their core for the sake of doing it. Like, to do it to get rich, good luck, because you're gonna have times you don't make any money and it's gonna be tough. So like, you got to enjoy the journey. You're gonna burn out. So I think this was fun. I always host. I went to University of Arizona and I host like students at our office, and I'll take on one day shadowing interns and stuff like that. And I had 2 girls come and shadow me a few months ago, and I change it up trying to figure out like what's the right way to do this. And this time I decided like, you're just going to sit here with me and watch my day in the life. So you're going to sit and watch me go on a podcast like this. You're going to sit and watch me take calls and deal with this. And I'm going to be super transparent about what I'm dealing with. You're going to watch me have to, get a bank loan to go do this and work on our line of credit and yell at one of our managers for not handling something they said they were going to handle or whatever. And at the end of the day, they both looked at me and said, yeah, we don't want to run a business. Like, well, glad I could be the window into that. Like, don't want to dissuade you, but I think it's 99% of people won't like it. And I think that's okay. I think like the lack of stability, the chaos that happens when you run a business, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out every day. And like the target's constantly moving too. So you got to thrive in that and enjoy it, or you're going to be miserable in life. And that's why depression, mental health issues, suicide rates really high in entrepreneurs and founders. I think mostly because people do it because they think they're supposed to, and not because they actually want to. And so you got to be really careful falling into that.
Interesting. Erik, where can people find you, Hawke Media, get in touch with you guys, all of the above?
So we're always happy to dive in and do a free marketing audit and look at what someone's doing. That's just hawkemedia.com with an E at the end of Hawk. And then I'm on every social @Erik Huberman. I'm pretty easy to find intentionally.
Beautiful. And guys, if you're listening to this or watching this, we'll drop all those links in the show notes or in the description, depending on where you're watching it. But Erik, appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing all the insights.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Talk to you soon.